Humans have been eating onions for over 5,000 years. Archaeologists found onion remnants inside Egyptian tombs dating back to 3500 BCE. Not placed there as food for the living, placed there as offerings for the dead. The Egyptians believed the onion's perfectly layered rings symbolized eternal life. Greek Olympic athletes rubbed raw onion juice directly onto their muscles before competition. Roman legions carried sacks of onions across Europe and North Africa, believing they hardened the body against cold, exhaustion, and disease. In the 6th century, Indian physician Charaka called the onion the most important vegetable in medicine. None of them understood why, they just knew it worked. It was not until 1936 that Hungarian biochemist Albert Szent-Györgyi, the Nobel Prize-winning scientist who first isolated vitamin C, identified the flavonoid family of plant compounds that would eventually lead cancer researchers straight back to the onion. When those researchers arrived, they found something that genuinely surprised them. The same chemical defense system the onion evolved over 20 million years to protect itself from insects and bacteria appeared to behave in very specific and very targeted ways around abnormal human cells. That discovery did not come from one study. It came from 3 decades of research across multiple countries, multiple laboratories, and multiple cancer types, all pointing toward the same humble vegetable that ancient civilizations had been burying with their kings. There are thousands of onion varieties grown across the world today, but 4 of them sit in almost every American grocery store every single week. Each one carries a completely different chemical profile, each one has a history that stretches back centuries, and each one does something inside the human body that the others cannot replicate. Red onion. Red onions are believed to have originated in the Asiatic region of Central Asia before spreading westward into ancient Persia and then into Greece and Rome, where agricultural texts from 500 BCE documented their widespread cultivation. Their deep purple-red exterior is not cosmetic. It is produced by a pigment compound called anthocyanin, the same molecule that gives blueberries their color, red wine its depth, and red cabbage its richness. Anthocyanin belongs to the flavonoid family, but operates through a completely separate biological mechanism than quercetin, the primary antioxidant found across all onion varieties. Red onions carry both simultaneously. No other common onion variety does that. Researchers at Cornell University decided to test every major onion variety directly against cancer cells. They published their findings in the Journal of Agricultural and Chemistry. Red onion extract was the most effective at inhibiting the growth of liver cancer and colon cancer cells in laboratory conditions. But the result was not what made the study remarkable. It was the mechanism. The red onion compounds did not attack cancer cells from the outside. They entered the cell and activated its own internal destruction sequence. The cancer cell was chemically instructed by its own biology to dismantle itself. Scientists call that process apoptosis. Triggering it from inside the cell is considered significantly more powerful than blocking growth from outside. The compound responsible for that internal trigger sits almost entirely in the outermost layers of the red onion, the darkest, most intensely colored rings that most people peel away and discard before they ever reach the cutting board. Yellow onion. Yellow onions account for 87% of all onions grown in the United States today. They have been cultivated in North America since the early colonial period, and they became the dominant American kitchen onion for one very specific reason that had nothing to do with flavor. A properly cured yellow onion, stored in a cool, dry place, stays completely edible for up to 3 months without any refrigeration whatsoever. Before mechanical refrigeration existed in American homes, which was not standard until the 1930s, that shelf life was not a convenience, it was survival. Yellow onions carry the second highest quercetin concentration of all common onion varieties. Quercetin is a flavonoid antioxidant that the human body cannot manufacture on its own. It must come entirely from food. A study published in the European Journal of Nutrition tested how efficiently the human body absorbs quercetin from different food sources, and the result startled the researchers. Quercetin sourced from onions was absorbed into the human bloodstream at nearly double the rate of quercetin sourced from apples. The onion, one of the cheapest vegetables in any grocery store, delivered its protective compounds more efficiently than a fruit that has been synonymous with good health for generations. What made the finding even more specific was what happened during cooking. Quercetin released from yellow onions during slow, gentle cooking in liquid retained substantial biological activity after heat exposure. The broth in a soup pot enriches itself with bioavailable quercetin every minute a yellow onion simmers inside it. The liquid becomes part of the delivery system. Most people pour that liquid down the drain. White onion. White onions carry their deepest agricultural roots not in Europe or Asia, but in Mexico and Central America. Spanish conquistadors arriving in Mesoamerica in the early 1500s documented something that stopped them. The indigenous populations were cultivating and consuming white onions on a scale and with a sophistication that rivaled anything the Spanish had seen at home. The Aztecs used them medicinally, ceremonially, and as a daily dietary staple centuries before European contact. When the Spanish brought white onions back across the Atlantic, they were introducing to Europe a vegetable that had already been refined by another civilization for hundreds of years. White onions rank lower than red and yellow varieties in quercetin concentration, but they carry something the other varieties cannot match in the same way: vitamin C content that arrives completely undamaged because white onions are almost universally consumed raw. Vitamin C is destroyed by heat within minutes of cooking. It dissolves in water, it breaks down under prolonged storage, but sliced raw in a fresh salsa or a ceviche, the white onion delivers its full vitamin C content without losing a single milligram of it. The National Cancer Institute has identified vitamin C as a dietary antioxidant consistently associated across multiple large population studies with reduced risk of cancers of the mouth, esophagus, stomach, and lung. A single medium white onion contains approximately 11 milligrams of vitamin C. It also directly stimulates the production of white blood cells, the immune system's primary cellular soldiers against abnormal tissue changes anywhere in the body. The Aztecs didn't know any of that, but they were eating it raw every single day. Green onions. Green onions have been continuously cultivated in China for over 2,000 years. Chinese agricultural texts from 100 BCE describe them as one of the 5 essential vegetables of ancient Chinese medicine, alongside garlic, leeks, ginger, and scallions. They arrived in North America during the 1849 California gold rush, carried by Chinese immigrant workers, and spent the next several decades confined almost entirely to Chinese American kitchens in San Francisco and New York City. American cookbooks began featuring them regularly until the mid-20th century. They were treated as a garnish, an afterthought, something scattered on top of a dish for color rather than consumed for substance. That assumption turned out to be completely wrong. The green stalks of scallions are dense with folate, a B vitamin that sits at the center of one of the most consequential biological processes in the human body. Every time a human cell divides, it must copy its entire DNA sequence perfectly. Folate is the compound that makes that copying process accurate. When folate levels fall below adequate thresholds, that copying process begins making errors. Small errors, invisible errors, errors the person carrying them will not feel or notice for years or even decades. But errors in DNA replication accumulated silently over a lifetime are among the foundational cellular events in cancer development. The CDC and NIH both identify folate deficiency as directly associated with increased risk of cancer. Half a cup of raw chopped green onion delivers 32 micrograms of folate. That's 8% of the recommended daily intake in what most people sprinkle on a baked potato without giving it a second thought. Green onions also produce allicin the instant their tissue is cut, the same sulfur compound that has made garlic one of the most studied vegetables in cancer research for the past 40 years. Research published through the American Institute for Cancer Research suggests allicin may block the activation of dietary carcinogens inside the digestive tract, specifically along the stomach lining and the colon wall. Louis Pasteur first documented allicin ability to kill bacteria in his laboratory in 1858. He was studying garlic at the time. It took another century before researchers realized the same compound was sitting quietly in the green onion that most of America was using as a garnish. There's one thing almost nobody knows about every onion on this list. Cutting an onion starts a specific enzyme reaction that produces its most protective sulfur compounds. But that reaction doesn't finish the moment the knife lifts. It needs 10 minutes to complete. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Chemistry found that onions allowed to rest for 10 minutes after cutting before any heat is applied retain dramatically more of their protective compounds than onions cut and cooked immediately. The ancient Egyptians spent 5,000 years eating onions without knowing this. Modern science figured it out. Most people cooking tonight